Here is the investment receipt, I said, laying out the next document. $85,000 invested into your friend's startup. In your name only. Not joint. Not a shared investment. Your name. Sarah, I can explain, he started. His voice was trembling. Really? Let us go through these together, I said, laying out printed messages. Here is you texting me the night before the conference saying not to worry about anything. Here is you calling it a side investment in a message to your friend. Here is the startup bankruptcy notice from 3 months later. Here is the email saying the investors are getting nothing back. Here is the notice that the startup declared total loss. His colleagues were staring. His boss was reading the documents over my shoulder. His mother, who had come early and was sitting at the table, had her hand over her mouth. Michael was sweating. Actual sweat on his forehead. And here is something interesting, I continued. The day this transfer happened, I was at a conference in Boston. Here is my calendar entry. Here is my email confirmation of attendance. Here are photos from the event that day. So either I somehow transferred $85,000 remotely from Boston while attending a conference all day, or you transferred it yourself, and then lied about me agreeing to it. This is between us, Michael whispered desperately. No, I said calmly. This is between you and the police. I filed a report this morning. And between you and my lawyer. And between you and everyone at this table who should know what you are actually capable of. I stood up. I looked directly at his boss and said, I am filing a lawsuit for fraud and unauthorized transfer of funds. You might want to talk to your HR department about whether you want someone with this level of dishonesty representing your company. Then I turned back to Michael. I kept my voice low and even. You are going to pay back every single dollar. Plus legal fees. Plus damages. Or we are going to trial. And I am going to make sure the court documents prove exactly what you did. I walked out. I did not slam anything. I did not yell. I just walked out with my head up. The room went completely silent as I left. His mother was absolutely horrified. I found out later she cried in the bathroom for 20 minutes. The lawsuit went exactly how my lawyer said it would. Michael's attorney tried to settle for about $35,000. I refused. Patricia said, he is desperate. He knows he is going to lose. 6 months later, we were in court. The forensic accountant presented the timeline of the unauthorized transfer. My lawyer presented my documentation. The calendar. The emails. The journal entries. Michael's own text messages were read into the record. He tried to claim that I had verbally agreed to the investment. But he had zero documentation. No email confirming our conversation. No text message. Nothing. Just his word against the documented proof that I was in a different city when he claimed we had this conversation. The judge found him liable for fraud and unauthorized transfer of funds. I won a judgment for $85,000 plus $12,000 in legal fees and court costs. The judge also issued a restraining order preventing him from contacting me, which was honestly just administrative at that point. But here is where it gets really interesting. About 2 weeks after the lawsuit was settled, the startup owner reached out to me privately. Apparently, Michael had also been embezzling money from the business. Michael's best friend realized he had been dragged into a fraud lawsuit because of Michael. They cut contact completely. Years of friendship, just over. His employer saw the lawsuit documents. They investigated. And they discovered other discrepancies in his expense reports going back years. They made the decision to terminate his employment. Based on their own findings. Not something I coordinated. Just natural consequences of his own dishonesty. The judgment payments happened over an 18-month payment plan. Michael was required to pay about $5,000 a month. During that time, I did something important. I changed every password. I deleted every photo of us together. I blocked him on everything. And I moved forward. About a year and a half after the judgment was finalized, I was standing in the empty living room of a house on closing day. It was a beautiful house in a nice neighborhood. The one we had dreamed about buying together, actually. Or at least a house just like it. And I had this moment of clarity. I had never wanted that house because of Michael. I wanted it despite him. The dream was not about him. The dream was about my future. And now, standing in that living room, I realized that future was entirely mine. I have done a lot since then. I launched a podcast interviewing women who had experienced financial betrayal. I became an advocate for financial literacy and independent wealth building. I gave a TED Talk about financial autonomy after betrayal that has gotten over 2 million views. Women message me all the time with their stories. I help them understand that they can protect themselves. I date now, but I am not looking for someone to complete me. I am looking for someone to enhance a life that is already complete. I have my own accounts. I verify everything. I document conversations about money. I do not trust blindly anymore. I trust, but I verify. That is not cynicism. That is wisdom I earned the hard way. Michael? Last I heard, he moved back in with his parents at age 34. He is working in a retail job completely unrelated to his field. The consequences of the fraud lawsuit and his own actions affected his professional path. He reached out once, asking if we could talk. I did not respond. There was nothing more to discuss. I won, not because I destroyed him, but because I protected myself and built something better. The betrayal was supposed to be the end of my story, but it was not. It was the beginning of a completely different story. A story where I discovered I was far stronger than I had ever believed possible. A story where I learned that the best revenge is not destruction. It is thriving. And I am thriving. Some betrayals are so complete, so breathtakingly audacious, that they deserve to be met with equal documentation and strategic force. Dexter did not just cheat on me. Wait, sorry, that is from another story. Michael did not just steal from me. He created an entire alternate reality where I was the villain. He built a false narrative and then gaslit me into questioning my own memory. That level of deception deserves accountability. And I made sure he faced it. I did not confront Michael again that night. I did not yell. I did not cry. Well, I cried. But privately. What I did was make a decision that changed everything. I was going to gather every piece of evidence that existed. I was going to build a case so airtight that his words would not matter anymore. I was going to make him understand that lying to me had a price. The next morning, I called a forensic accountant. Someone who specialized in financial fraud cases. Then I called a lawyer. The lawyer was named Patricia. And she was exactly who I needed. No nonsense. Direct. And completely focused on protecting my interests. She said, "Do you have documentation of the original inheritance?" I had everything. The will. The lawyer's letter. The initial deposit into my account. All of it. "Do you have evidence of the unauthorized transfer?" I pulled out my laptop and showed her the bank statement. "And you have no record of ever authorizing this?" I showed her my calendar. 6 months of entries. My journal. My email confirmations from the conference on the day the transfer happened. Zero evidence that I had ever agreed to any of this. Patricia leaned back in her chair and said, "You have a very strong case for fraud and unauthorized transfer of funds. We can also file a police report for financial elder abuse. Since this was money from your grandmother's estate, that is a qualifying offense. And we will subpoena his phone records, his emails, his financial documentation. Everything." I nodded. Everything was good so far. But I had one more plan in mind. Over the next month, I collected everything. And I mean everything. Bank statements going back 3 years. Credit card statements. Email correspondence with Michael where he had referenced borrowing the money. Not asking. Borrowing. Text messages where he had said things like, "Do not worry, I got this, and trust me, the investment will pay off big." Screenshots of our conversations. Every gaslighting thing he had said to me. I wrote it down with exact dates and times. The investment account statements showed the money disappearing into his friend's startup account. The startup's bankruptcy filing showed the money was completely gone. Not mismanaged. Not underperforming. Actually gone. Nothing coming back. I also pulled my own records. My calendar showed a conference in Boston on June 14th. My email had the confirmation. I had photos from the event. I had proof that I physically could not have authorized a transfer I was not there to make. My lawyer reviewed everything and said, "Sarah, this is exceptional documentation. Most people in your situation have half of this. You are going to win this case." But winning the case was not actually my main goal anymore. My main goal was making sure he understood that lying to me and stealing from me had consequences. Real consequences. And I knew exactly how to deliver them. I spent 2 weeks planning the confrontation. Not violently planning. Strategically planning. I needed to do this in a way that was legal. That was documented. And that he could not spin into some narrative about me being the bad guy. Then I got lucky. Michael's company was hosting an annual dinner party downtown at an upscale steakhouse. All his colleagues, his boss, his parents flying in from out of state, his entire professional circle. A casual event, but also public enough that he could not create a different story about what happened afterward. Perfect. This was my stage. I printed everything. Bank statements in order. The 1099 form. The investment account statements. His own text messages where he admitted to moving the money. The bankruptcy filing. My calendar showing the conference. My journal entries. Everything was organized, highlighted, color-coded, and ready to go. I printed multiple sets. One to present. One to hand to his boss. One for my records. One backup copy. I even created a simple one-page timeline showing the sequence of events. Very library-style organization. Very calm. Very devastating. I also did something else. I called Fern, his assistant, the day before the dinner. Fern had always liked me better than him. Possibly because I remembered her birthday, and he still called her Fran after 8 years. Fern, I need to ask you something, I said. And I need you to be honest with me. Of course, she replied. I could hear the curiosity in her voice. Did Michael ever travel to Springfield for work? I asked. There was a pause. Then she said, Springfield? Not that I know of. Why? Just checking something. Thank you. I hung up. My suspicion was confirmed. Michael had been lying about his work trips too. The dinner was scheduled for 7 p.m. on a Thursday evening. I arrived at the restaurant at 6:55 p.m., dressed in a professional but powerful outfit. I walked in, scanned the room, and there was Michael at a large table with about 40 people who were about to witness his entire life implode. When he saw me, his face went confused. He did not know why I was there. He definitely was not expecting me to join this professional dinner. I walked over calmly. I pulled up a chair next to his boss. I did not say hello. I just pulled out my envelope of documents and set them on the table. Hi everyone, I said, my voice steady and clear. I need to talk to Michael about something important. But I think you all should hear it too. His face went white. Like, actually white. His boss leaned back in his chair, suddenly very interested. Michael, I said, looking him directly in the eye. I have some documents I would like to show you. And everyone else. Because I think you all need to understand what kind of person this is. I pulled out the first paper. The bank transfer authorization showing $85,000 being transferred from my account to his. This is authorization for transferring my inheritance. Money my grandmother left me. To your business account. Notice anything? My signature is not on it. My initials are not on it. Nobody with authority to make that transfer made that transfer. You did it without permission. His hands started shaking. Turns out there is no guidebook for what to do when your fiancé steals your dead grandmother's inheritance and then gaslights you into thinking you dreamed the whole thing. But apparently, I wrote one. I am Sarah, and this is the story of how I went from blindsided to bulletproof in about 6 months. 2 years ago, I had what most people would call a perfect life. I was making decent money in marketing. I had a 4-year relationship with someone I actually loved. Michael and I had picked out a neighborhood, talked about buying a house together, discussed what color we would paint the kitchen, talked about schools for future kids. We had the whole dream mapped out. Then my grandmother passed away. It wasn't unexpected. She was getting older. But that does not make it easier when it actually happens. She left me about $85,000. That money meant something specific to me. It was not just an inheritance. It was the down payment for the house Michael and I had been planning. It was security. It was our future made tangible. I remember showing Michael the documents from the lawyer. His reaction seemed perfect. He held me while I cried. He said all the right things. Then he made a promise that I will never forget. He took my hand and looked me right in the eyes and said, I am going to protect this money like it was sacred. Sacred. I should have heard the irony in that word. Turns out irony is something most people miss when they are too busy trusting the wrong person. Looking back now, the signs were completely there. I just did not want to see them. Michael started acting stressed about something. He would not really talk about it. He would be on his laptop at weird hours, like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., taking calls in the other room, speaking quietly so I could not hear. When I asked what was going on, he would brush it off with vague answers. Just a side project. Nothing serious. Do not worry about it. I believed him. That was my mistake. A few months after getting the inheritance, our real estate agent called. The house we wanted. The one we had driven by dozens of times. The one we had literally discussed paint colors for. It went under contract. Someone else had made an offer. The seller accepted their bid. I was devastated. I remember calling Michael from my car. Actually crying. Telling him the house was gone. And you know what is weird? Michael seemed relieved. Actually relieved. He mumbled something about the timing not being right anyway. And maybe it was not meant to be. Who says that when their dream house just fell through? Someone who does not plan to be looking at houses with you anymore, I guess. That should have been my red flag right there. But I was caught up in the disappointment. So I missed it. 3 months after that conversation, I got a tax form in the mail. One of those 1099 forms that reports investment income. Except I had never opened any investment account. My name was on it. Sort of. The name was slightly misspelled. Which was odd. The amount was weird. Interest earned on an investment of approximately $85,000. I stared at that envelope for about 5 minutes. Just confused. My hands were shaking. I did not open any investment account. I had not made any investment. I did not recognize the brokerage company on the letterhead. This did not make sense. I called our accountant. Jennifer answered on the 3rd ring. I asked her if she knew anything about this account. There was a pause. A long pause. And then she said something that made my blood go completely cold. Sarah, I need to ask you something. Did you authorize a transfer of $85,000 to an investment account in Michael's name? I said no. Definitely no. Absolutely no. I am going to send you some documentation, she said carefully. But I think you need to look at your bank statements from June. I went back to my desk and pulled up my account. And there it was. A transfer I had never made. $85,000 going out. The date was June 14th. I had been at a conference that day. I had been in Boston. All day. I had emails confirming it. Photos from the conference. I definitely had not transferred any money. Something inside me went from confusion to ice-cold clarity in about 3 seconds. That click I mentioned. The moment everything shifts from "this does not make sense" to "oh my God, I know exactly what happened." He had stolen from me. Not borrowed. Not invested with my permission. Stolen. I drove home with my hands shaking so badly I had to grip the steering wheel extra tight. I pulled up all the documents on my laptop. I printed everything out. Then I waited for Michael to get home from work. When he walked through the door, I did not say hello. I just pulled up a chair and said, "We need to talk about my inheritance." His face went pale. Immediately pale. "What are you talking about?" I showed him the bank transfer. The 1099 form. The investment account statements showing the money flowing into his friend's startup. For about 30 seconds, he did not say anything. Just looked at the documents. Then he did something I was not expecting. Instead of admitting what he had done, he completely changed the narrative. "You agreed to this," he said. Just flat out said it. Like it was a fact we both already knew. I stared at him. "What are you talking about? I never agreed to any of this." "Yes, you did. Remember? We talked about it at dinner in July. You said you wanted to support my dreams. You were excited about it. Do not you remember?" I remembered every major conversation we had had that summer. I had my calendar sitting right there. I had my journal entries from that period. I had been meticulous my whole life about documentation. I had nothing that supported this dinner conversation in July. No calendar entry. No journal note. No text message to a friend mentioning it. "There is no record of this conversation," I told him. "That is because you are blocking it," he said. You feel guilty that the investment did not work out. So you're rewriting the memory. That is a real psychological thing. And then, to make it worse, my therapist, someone I had been seeing for 2 years and trusted, suggested that maybe I was subconsciously suppressing the memory of agreeing to this because I felt ashamed about the money being lost. Like my own brain was gaslighting me along with him. I hung up and did something he did not expect. I hung up and made a decision.